Kristin Smedley's mantra is, life is funny, sort of. Her fun-loving spirit and energetic personality guided her life in the direction of a teaching career. But fate had other plans. Kristin found herself shockingly dealt a double dose of darkness. Her firstborn son, Michael, was diagnosed as legally blind when he was just 4 months old. 3 years later, Kristin received another blow when her second son, Mitchell, was also diagnosed as legally blind at 4 months of age. Kristin soon began advocating for the tools her blind children needed and eventually launched the Curing Retinal Blindness Foundation, which has since achieved the first legislation in U.S. history to be submitted in Braille.
So to your knowledge, can you tell us a little bit about the rare mutation, the CB1 gene that caused your son's blindness?
Yeah, so CRB1 is one of those complicated genes. It's like everything in my life. It's complicated. It takes a copy. You need the mom and the dad have to each have a copy of this to affect the child. And then here's the thing with this gene. It's a 1 in 4 chance with every pregnancy. I heard that differently 20 years ago. I was thinking 1 in 4 pregnancies. Nope. It is a 25% chance with every pregnancy that you'll have an affected child. And CRB1 does not discriminate male or female. It's across the board. So.
Okay. And so how did you handle, how did you handle Michael's diagnosis?
Not well. I am not proud of this story. However, I share it because everyone sees me in the world now smiling all the time. And there's a reason for that. However, I didn't start that way. 20 years ago, I had every possible dream and plan to achieve that for not just me, but for my Michael when he was born. I had these big hopes and dreams. So when I heard your son is blind, and he was the first blind person I had ever met. So, for a planner, a little bit type A, very much Virgo, that did not mesh well. I had no point of reference. I had no education, let alone awareness, right? So I crashed. My hopes and dreams for him crashed, and I crashed, and our entire future went dark with that one sentence, your son is blind. And I stayed in crash mode for too long. But luckily it was a change in perception of my whole journey that changed that, but I did not start well. So for people that are not handling things well, we need to give ourselves some grace and take it in and take a breath, right? And then begin the rise.
Of course. Any challenge that you're faced with at first, especially as a mother. And I just know this from my own personal experience with my parents. My parents are divorced actually. So, I'm not talking about obviously, their father or anything, but my parents are divorced, and my mom was the one that single raised me because my dad was a little MIA and all of this. You accept it, all of that stuff. But so I kind of can relate from as a child. Yeah. So Michael was obviously diagnosed, and then what if anything did change or was different when your other son Mitchell was diagnosed?
Yeah. So here's the thing. When my life memoir could probably be called The Relentless Optimist, maybe even The Delirious Relentless Optimist. So when they said to me, once I was getting my head around Michael being blind, and I thought, come on, how could this really lightning strike twice? And I got into a frame of mind of, okay, I can survive this. I was not even thinking of thriving. I just was in survival mode. And I figured it would be harder for me coming from a huge family with dreams of a huge family to not have a huge family than to raise multiple blind kids, because I really thought that there was no way that would happen again. And then Kristin, the math major in college, showed up when I was pregnant with Mitchell. I was probably 7.5 months pregnant, so I was getting pretty big. And all of a sudden I thought, wow, like 25% is a big probability. Like this could go really off the rails. And Michael was almost 3.5 at that point. And he came bouncing into my bedroom on this one now history making moment because it changed everything. And he simply said to me in his voice that he had every day, with the glow he had every day that I was missing every day. And he said to me, Mommy, isn't this the best day ever? And in that moment, well, first I said to him, why? Because I was in my wretched, well, people say it's a prayer. It was not a prayer. It was a tantrum of do not do this again. How could I possibly have two? Right? I can't handle a second blind child. And he came in and didn't see any of that, thank goodness, and just said, isn't this the best day ever? I said, why do you think that? Because I'm thinking all the stuff he's missing, right? All the lack in his life. And he said to me, the sun is up. I have all my toys and I'm so happy. And I got to tell you, in that moment, I realized 3.5 years that little person had been on this planet and never had a bad day. He didn't see obstacles and problems. He saw opportunities for solutions. Like he just worked everything out. I mean, he practiced resilience from the moment he was born, and it was not a big deal to him. He just did it. You know, everything was exciting to him. He's almost 21 years old now, and everything is still exciting to him. He is such a unique spirit that it completely flipped my perception upside down and inside out. And I realized, thank goodness, in that moment that this is, you know, as a mom, I thought the world was going to be in his way. His mom was in his way. I was the only thing in his way. And I had to let it go. And I honestly think it's the biggest blessing that ever happened to me as a mom, not as a human, as a mom, because I realized, and I think this is a lot of all in love. I say this all in love for all the moms and dads out there, that we have our big dreams for our kids, right? We want their lives to be better. We use everything we have to elevate their lives and not eliminate any of their dreams.
Right.
And in that love and in that elevation, what we miss is their dreams that matter. It's their hopes that matter. We can have ours, but when we put them on them, it is so heavy that they're trying to carry theirs and ours and not disappoint. And in that moment, you know, thank God mine were ripped away and I didn't know what to expect. So I just made a commitment to him and then to my second son when he was born that my role was to get them what they need and follow their lead. I've been doing that for almost 21 years. And I have to tell you, the places that they have taken me, following their lead and getting them what they need, I never, in all of my charts and graphs and plans and planners and journals, I never could have come up with a list like they've lived. It's been extraordinary.
Right. No, I'm sure. I mean, it sounds extraordinary, and I've heard your story on, you know, YouTube and all, you know, your others. And I mean, it's remarkable, and I don't want to spoil it because we're going to obviously get more into your journey. But I think I think would be like really interesting for our listeners would be, so where are Mitchell and Michael like today? In their growth and development. I know you said Michael's almost 21. And I assume he's in college. I mean, I know. And so like, what are they doing with their lives? Are they invested in, you know, trying to, they're obviously still young, but, you know, in trying to find quote unquote a cure for their CRB1 mutation, or, you know, what avenue have they taken? Like what has blindness quote unquote taught them, and how they like perceive themselves as quote unquote being invisibly different than others?
You know, my boys are both ambassadors for our research organization that works on treatments for this rare eye disease. And they are also equally motivated and popular ambassadors for our Thriving Blind mission, Succeeding Without Sight. And honestly, it was them that taught me years ago when I had an opportunity to form this now global mission, 2 missions of restoring vision and thriving with blindness. I was at a crossroads. How do I talk to them about, I'm going to go be the #1 champion of hope for rare eye diseases and cures? How do I talk to them about that when I raised them to be thriving with blindness and not needing a fix that everybody wants to fix, right? And I didn't know how to do that. So I asked them, which is what I've learned my whole life, ask for my kids' input and make a decision. And they said they understand that not many kids like them grew up like they did with the privilege of a phenomenal education, a mom that devoted 24 hours a day to advocating and teaching them how to advocate and getting all the tools and resources that they need. I mean, they are in the 1% of this country, which you see the irritation that I have in that. But my boys were aware enough that the world is not like their world. So their advice to me was, look, we're good to go if there's no treatment or cure. Now, they were also younger and in a bubble of not looking for jobs and getting denied employment. So take it with that perspective. So they said, but it was their right, if you will, to have an option. And it would be up to them. They would love to have an option on the table for them, for other people, to reverse blindness or be so empowered and have all the skills and tools they need that they wouldn't even need to worry about reversing blindness. Their word to me was option. So my life's mission is to provide options, and it's up to them to take it or leave it. And they, like I said, they have been ambassadors for that. They have been living and breathing Thriving Blind, as well as convincing the research community that it is a right for people to have an option for vision restoration. Michael's now in his junior year at Penn State University.
Congrats.
And he actually started in Nashville and spent a year hitting Dean's List, formed a band, released an album. I went to an album release party for him that he coordinated in Nashville, right? Like, I'm like, are you kidding me? And then he said to me, I've kind of conquered this campus and I'm bored. I want to go to a bigger campus, right? Who says that?
I know.
And now he's at Penn State. Just hit the, he just got the President's Award for the top 1% of the 75,000 undergrad students. He's in the top 1%. He started a podcast during the COVID shutdown of everything with one of his best friends. And they went back to campus in August and were offered a radio show on Penn State Radio because of their podcast. He goes after everything he wants to go after. He's the advocate. I mean, he sees there was a problem with the Penn State transportation system, and he went in and is a consultant now to figure it out. Like, blindness has definitely taught my boys that if you're going to sit and whine about it, you're not going to get anywhere. You have to get up, take some action, figure it out. And actually, Michael was the valedictorian of his high school class. Mm-hmm. That was one of my dreams he did not know that I had, and I let it go. And in his speech, he talked about building a team for the things you want to accomplish in life. Because, like it or not, I mean, he had to have a team all the time. He had to have people. He learned how to raise his hand and ask for help. He's extremely independent, but he learned the balance, right? So in his speech, he talked about building a team and looking for people that can do the things you can't, and everybody move forward together. And it was this glorious speech, but he ended it by saying, life is not a one-way street. You need to look up and see who needs you on their team and get on their team. And when I tell you, and thousands of people came to their feet, cheering over that concept, and having watched him, and I have this gorgeous picture that somebody took for me of Michael at the podium. He had walked to the podium on his own with the white cane that I was so scared of in the beginning of our journey, right? And he opened up his electronic Braille note taker where his speech was, all the tools that got him there. But the picture is him using that Braille machine, and behind him is the school board and the school administration, who believed in kindergarten that all he would max out at is 70% of their sighted kids. And they weren't happy about him being in the school district. But 70% was their goal. And we forced them to make 100% their goal because 100% was the goal for the sighted kids, right? So this picture, it's 12 years of advocacy and convincing people to change their perceptions and raise the bar and put the goals up where the sighted kid was and get the tools and resources, right? The looks of pride and pure joy on all of their faces was worth every tear, every hour spent in IEP meetings. It was worth all of it because they were convinced. And in the picture, it's so evident on their faces that they were happy and the people were cheering in that gym, not because Michael's the blind guy that did pretty well. He was just Michael, whose spirit and drive and accomplishments are off the charts. And pretty much everyone in that gym had voted for him to be an executive member of the student council all 4 years in that school. It was one of the greatest mom moments and human moments I've ever had.
It's amazing. I mean, and the pride and joy that you have, I mean, that's incredible. So does my mom too, but it's amazing.
There's just so much adversity that you guys deal with, but when you see where adversity pays off, when you look at it as, okay, you're having this adversity with the safety net of us around you, and let's give you the tools and let you practice and fix it and practice and fix it and perfect it. And then you go out in the world. I mean, look at the work you're doing now. She must be out of her mind.
Absolutely. And she's the secretary. So,
I actually say in the dedication of my book, Thriving Blind, in the beginning of it, I dedicated to my kids and to my parents. And what I realized is I was raised, I think this is the differentiator for everybody. I was raised not with much, but my parents gave me and my brothers unconditional love. And I believe that unconditional love is the foundation from which we can thrive. And if that's missing, I have just seen that in my 49 years. I have seen the lack of unconditional love is where a lot of problems are rooted. When you have that, you have that foundation of confidence, of all the things you need to surpass adversity, to be, as I say in my online show, brilliantly resilient. I mean, it just sets you up to thrive.
Absolutely. I agree.
I can tell because you were raised in that too.
Yeah, of course. So you've been quoted saying, I hated the words Braille and cane when I first was on the journey because they meant my life was looking different. A lot of people go through that. All I knew about blindness is that it would be lonely, isolating, and devastating. When and how did your perception about the blind community change?
It's hard for me to go back to those days of thinking that this was going to be so devastating and so dark, because it is the exact opposite of what I expected. And it really began when I noticed, thank God that my eyes were open. Like I often say that I prayed for a cure for blindness when my son was diagnosed, and I got it. I did get a cure for blindness. It was mine. It was me seeing it completely wrong. And then when Michael bounced in and I saw that he did not see blindness as a barrier. And then I watched my Mitchell not see blindness as a barrier. And I saw the power of role models. That was my number one. When my Michael met Eric Weinmayer, the blind mountain climber, when Michael met him, I credit that meeting as the change in trajectory for Michael's life. And and then a couple years later, me and my kids were at Eric's house for dinner, and I saw my daughter. I have a sighted daughter. My third child is sighted. And I saw that change the trajectory of her life because they saw him, and especially my daughter saw Eric as a guy that's hilarious. I mean, he is hilarious. A dad messing with his teens,
Right.
A husband. They saw him driving everybody crazy on his rolly chair in the kitchen, right? Like it was just a normal family thing. And my daughter was so little and saw that her brothers were just going to be just like everybody else. There's never been a barrier in my daughter's mind. And we can talk about that later. But meeting people like Eric and all the people that are in my book and the thousands of people succeeding without sight that I have met since day one have changed everything for me. And it's on a continual basis, because there are times as I go into the next stage, like when Michael was going to college, when I had to drop him off in Nashville. So that's 1,000 miles from my house. I measured it on Google Maps, right? And I thought, oh my God. I remember we were on campus and I had to get on a plane the next morning really early. And we were spending a week memorizing the campus, memorizing where the dorm is to Starbucks, where the dorm is to class number 1 and all that stuff. And then I was panicking. And I said to him, look, I don't know, Michael, I don't know if this was the best decision in the world, that you're going to be 1,000 miles away. And these are not the people that we have been with for 12 years, that I have hammered all these things into their minds, right? And changed perceptions. And you're going up again. And I was so upset. And he lost it. Michael does not get upset all that often, let alone at me. And he said, how dare you? How dare you not trust me? I've been doing this for 18 years. How dare you not trust that I have the tools? I did the work. I'm ready. And oh my gosh, it was one of my most horrible mom moments. But then I opened up my phone and I pulled up Facebook, and all of my friends at that moment were on college campuses leaving their firstborn children behind, right? And I go like this, look, Lisa's crying and Abby's crying. I'm pointing through all these people. I said, it's a mom thing. I just don't know if you're ready as a human. It's a mom thing. And you have a few more layers to it. But I'm like, all right, I got it. I'll back up. I'll get on the plane. And maybe he worked extra hard to prove to me, I don't know. But like I said, he rocked that year and he's been rocking it ever since. But it really has been the role models that open my mind every single day, including my boys that are now people that do that for me. And when I go into those next stages that I'm fearful that, can we really do this? People show me all the time that, yes, get over it. Change that perception. Yes. It's just an ongoing thing for me that I didn't just arrive.
Took time.
Perception changed and moved on.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of a mom thing too.
Absolutely. I would agree from what I've seen. So your book, Thriving Blindness, Real Stories, are stories of real people who have succeeded without sight. Basically is an accumulation of different people who are visually impaired and their story and how they've succeeded and, achieved happiness and so forth. What is the takeaway message that, the goal of your book is that you want readers to take away?
I wrote this book for the mom. It is literally written for the mom sitting on her couch crying like I was, that cannot handle the fact that her child was just diagnosed as blind, right? So that was the goal, that this mom, it was like me going to all their living rooms, hugging them and saying, you need to know the people that I know, because I've been where you're sitting. That's not going to get you anywhere, and it's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. The interesting piece is that it has now impacted employers. There's a 70% unemployment rate in the blind community, and the majority of that is perception of blindness. The other big tag team for majority of issue there is education of blind children. But, just that perception of blindness is holding a lot of people back from employing and giving folks that are living without sight opportunities that they deserve to have. So honestly, I've been debating whether to come out with a second, I don't know what you call it in Bookville. It's not model. It's like in the series or whatever, or edition. I guess the word's edition, to say there are 13 stories of resilience, because now it's a go-to resource for anyone that has been hit with an adversity, like what we just went through this past year, to say, how do you go from massive sucker punch to achieving still all of your hopes and dreams. And it's got a lot of the skills of resilience in it. But really, the biggest takeaway is our perceptions drive everything that's happening around us. And if you're going to look at a person without sight and think, that's a shame, or it's, oh, isn't that wonderful that they can walk down the street like that? That's not the case at all. They have so many lessons to teach in this book, but really the biggest one is what my boys teach me every day. They're just people. They're people who might do some things differently, have the same annoying opinions as other people. The people in the book actually run the gamut of stay-at-home parent, retired worker, different stages of life that way, to Eric, who, climbed all 7 summits that I really don't want my boys doing. Thank you very much, because we have enough trips to the hospital for all the sports that they do, right? But it runs the gamut, just like all humans run the gamut of whether they're going to be these massive achievers of crazy things or be like me, stay at home for a long time, raising kids and loving life, like all the different things. And this actually wasn't on purpose. Half the stories are people that lost vision later in life, and half were born without vision. I didn't even do that on purpose. Quite frankly, I didn't know enough people to be able to be selective that way. Because a lot of times people will say, they had vision early and then lost it. It's actually 50-50. Some people say that's more devastating. And some people say that's a plus, that they had vision and have a point of reference. It doesn't matter. And when you read the stories, you'll see it doesn't matter. And I have to tell you that one of the most frequent comments that I get from readers all over the world is just a few chapters in, you forget that they're even blind.
Right.
And that actually is the dream of my boys. Stop seeing that first. And honestly, that took me a long time. I want to say Michael was probably 19 until and maybe it's a mom thing. Maybe it's in the work that I do. I don't know, that I get obsessed with that and see the blindness first and fix everything around him. And remove barriers and all that stuff. But it's just see the person, and honestly, having a sighted daughter that was born into all of this, that's how she sees it. She doesn't see the cane as a barrier like the rest of the world. She sees it as a tool. She doesn't see a wheelchair as a barrier. It's a tool. Mm-hmm. That's actually my dream for the world. Don't see the barriers, see them as tools. Yes, we have differences. Celebrate the differences. Celebrate how a blind person does things completely different, because I got to tell you, it's usually more efficient.
They find their ways, accessibility, especially with the ADA, like you talked about, Michael, with Penn State, transportation, they become creative. And, they figure their ways, more than a person who's quote unquote, normal, doesn't have any differences.
Yeah. They get to use different parts of their brain that we never tap into. And I really believe that that's why they're off the charts smart, if you will, brilliant. Mitch, my second son is a senior in high school now, looking at colleges.
Okay.
And he scored in the top 3% of the country for the SAT.
Amazing.
They are just so smart, but I always tell them that they're cheating, because ever since they were born, their brain has had to, max out on every possible thing going on there, since their vision they couldn't rely on. And they've trained it to just think differently and honestly better.
Yeah. Amazing. So can you tell us more about the Curing Retinal Blindness Foundation?
Yeah, so the Curing Retinal Blindness Foundation, I started back in 2011 when the door to possible vision restoration opened here in Philly, actually in my hometown, with another gene very similar to ours, had hit the major media that they had a possible cure or treatment in gene therapy for a very similar rare eye disease to ours. And I pretty much just said, how can we be next? Now I have to remember that my kids were only 11 and 8 at the time. I was nowhere near where I'm at on my journey now. And I was still hoping every day for a miracle to happen and they could see my smile, see their sister, and not have to worry about any of this stuff anymore. But at any rate, so I launched that. I found 10 moms on Facebook that had kids like my kids. And say what you want about social media, but when used correctly, the power of it is extraordinary. Because I found 10 moms. We launched a little tiny website on Memorial Day weekend and had our first fundraiser 3 months later. And it was our first $20,000 into this journey that is now raised, I guess we're over $1.4 million now. We just held a global summit in the pandemic. We couldn't all get together, so we opened it up to the entire world. Thank you, Zoom. And had
You're talking about the No Barriers with Eric?
What's that?
You're talking about the virtual? Oh, no. Sorry. I got
no, this was
you're talking about just
decided to have
your foundation. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we just decided to have a CRB1 family meetup, and the researchers that we're funding came in to talk. But here's the beauty of it. This is where the foundation has evolved. We started out as research, finish line being a cure, right? About a year in, I realized, now I was trained to be a third grade teacher, so I'm no scientist. I am certainly not as smart as my boys. However, I'm getting calls from these families and I'm watching my own two boys and I thought, there's no way there's one finish line. There's just no way that one scientific thing is fixing all these different issues, right? So I at least knew that. We started diversifying and looking at other options than just gene therapy. And then I was getting call after call after call from moms as I got more and more globally recognized from all different blindnesses, calling me saying, okay, so this will be ready in what you think, like 10 years. And they were going to sit on that couch and essentially do nothing until that cure came. And I thought, oh my gosh, well, I almost closed the doors on it all because I thought, what a disservice to my kids, to everybody like them, that they have a life to live. You know, whether this, I don't know if this is going to work or not. All these people are hitting the brakes on life with their kids until a cure came about. So anyway, I thought it was completely irresponsible for us to only look at research when we had an opportunity being in touch with all these families to say, hey, let me connect you to some resources so you can get off that couch, dry your tears. And while we're waiting on a possible finish line in this direction, let your kids go chase their own finish line and see where they land. So then we, diversified again. And now we do connect families to resources for thriving with blindness, in addition to potential treatment options. And for all the people that run nonprofits out there, I know that they're twitching, thinking, oh my God, you have such a limited amount of resources and you're now splitting the focus. And I don't know how it's worked other than it is divine intervention that my little team all came together, because the power in this small group, and it's a testament to a parent's love of a mission and getting options for their kids, and then finding the most extraordinary scientific people. I mean, people just drop into our journey like you can't even imagine. And like I said, we are global now. We hosted that first ever global summit. 11 countries are involved. We have patient cohorts that as soon as the world reopens, we're headed to Spain, Puerto Rico, all these different groups of families that want in on this mission of, yes, towards cures, but at the same time, understanding, getting to know, and utilizing the tools and strategies to help their kids thrive. It has been the most exhausting, but extraordinary journey that I could never in my wildest dreams have planned. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't know, pre having kids, what life would be like. And also then, all the work that you're doing, and obviously this foundation. But life is a journey, as I always say, and it's not a straight line. There's positives and negatives.
Yeah.
But
yeah, absolutely.
You're making a difference in the world as well. And
well, you know what? I tell you what, I looked at it years ago as, gosh, I had to give up teaching. I had to give that up. That was my life's dream. And I just went with being a mom, right? Mm-hmm. And then years ago, I started tapping into, like in my work in resilience, we talk about what is your brilliance? What is your, stop chasing after learning 80 million other things and trying to be all these things. What is your brilliance? And mine is teaching. And I dream of being the storyteller that my dad is, but telling a story. And when I started really tapping into that, that's when you can probably see, if there was a timeline of my journey the past 10 years, you see when I really started uncovering what my own brilliance is and utilizing that, tapping into it. And now, it's just uncanny. Here's how uncanny it is. I went from, and this is also a testament to, no matter where you are now, where you can go when you harness the power of your own brilliance and the skills of resilience. I sat 20 years ago sobbing on my couch every single day for almost 3 years, praying this away. Right. And then when I did the steps of resilience and uncovering brilliance and building a team and really getting into my life's purpose, last year, I was named as the Champion of Hope, the biggest award in the rare disease community. So I go from the hopeless, pathetic mess to the Champion of Hope. That is unbelievable. Mm-hmm. However, those few things, and the kicker is, if I can do it, anybody can do it. It's in all of us. Mm-hmm. You just got to tap in, take a breath, and find that.
For sure. So what, in your opinion, is the biggest challenge right now with congenital blindness?
Honestly, it remains perception. In my mind, in my work, and in my experience, it is people's perceptions of blindness that is the biggest barrier to thriving, to success. Because I'll tell you what, I know this from proof. I mean, I'm no scientist, but I work with a lot of them, right? My boys, like I said, are in the 1% that have had every single possible blessing, tool, resource, all of it. A mom that's relentless and tenacious, right? They've had all that. And just this year in the pandemic, they were denied, both of them at 20 and 17 were both denied jobs simply because of perceptions of blindness. And I got to tell you, I spiraled for a few days because I thought, are you kidding me? Like, just when you think I'm known globally, my name comes up all the time. The people that I know and know about me are unbelievable. The messages I get from the TED Talk and all that stuff. One of these things happened in my own hometown, and people in my town are stunned because it is like, we're famous by default because who has two blind sons walking around on baseball teams, diving teams? We're just famous by default. But when it's happening in my own town, there's still a lot of work to be done. So I switched gears again. We all had a lot of time to sit and think during the global shutdown, right? And I've switched gears to a whole different way of getting this message out there with the new online show that I have, and now I'm stepping into some extraordinary new things with an assistive technology company, a short film, getting into the arts, getting that story told professionally in a whole different. I have to speak and tell a story in a different way to get it out there, to change these perceptions. And I think we'll have to stay in touch, and I'll let you know. Yeah,
no, we will. I think also, I know you said a short film. And I don't know what the short film is going to entail, but it would be actually a great documentary of like just your journey with Mitchell and Michael, and just, where you guys started from, and now like where you guys are all thriving, and obviously the work that you do and that your kids help you with, and their advocacy and so forth. But yeah, I can't wait to see the work moving forward. So lastly, what words of wisdom or encouragement would you give to other parents who have children that are visually impaired or blind?
First of all, join the Thriving Blind community, because the word community is what you need to build. And I was so there. I grew up in a community. I am a sports nut through and through. I've always been on teams, and I sat there when I first heard your son is blind, and I was in the loneliest pit. I understand what that's like, to feel like nobody is like you. I had people running in the opposite direction. They were so scared and sad about blindness, but it really is community that you need. And not all of us are blessed to have the community and family right close by. People are all over the place. The Thriving Blind community on Facebook and then on my website is really where all of the people connect. They are the most extraordinary group of people. But the biggest thing is, and this is so hard for parents to hear, but you're either going to be your child's avenue to succeed without sight or their roadblock. And there's no in between. And you have to, even if you have to fake it for a little while, you have to get out of their way. You have to let them get outside and play. You have to get them the bike and run alongside of them, or keep the training wheels on, get a tandem bike. You have to let them get out there and do the things they want to do and figure it out, and teach them how to figure it out also. Because the other part of the thing is, you don't want to go out there and do everything for them and move stuff out of their way and let them experience with no challenges, right? And you have to teach them how to advocate for themselves. I mean, for one thing, my boys have been in their IEP meetings since they were in elementary school. And by high school, they run them. Because you know what? They're now at college and they have to do that. And then they have to go deal with employers and the world. I mean, you have to learn it really quick ahead of them. And then you got to turn around and teach them how to do it themselves. But they can do it. You just have to get out of their way.
Right. And you have to teach them that, go on and thrive, and, don't rely on you or, any parent or, guardian or so forth.
Yeah. And drop your dreams for them. I mean, I know we all hold them in our heart, and you look and see their gifts and talents and want them to tap into that and do some amazing things. But honestly, I think it's just parenting advice across the board, because I'm watching so many people struggle, and kids are struggling under the weight of dreams that aren't theirs and don't belong on them. But watch for the blessings. Watch my TED Talk, because you'll see I talk a little bit about I have the most extraordinary relationship with my kids.
I can tell.
Because of all of the having to step in and be there and be the one, when kids got a little weird and didn't want to include my kids, you can sit there and keep banging on those doors, or you can look for that positive, just like in the shutdown. I mean, we all were home together. Take some time, get to know each other, and then take a break from each other a little bit.
Of course, absolutely. But you develop, bigger connections. But yeah, you can't be on top of each other and obviously drive everyone nuts. Everyone needs their space. Well, this was wonderful, Kristin. You're amazing.